3, 2, 1.
I have a quote that I want to start my talk with this morning, and it's from a book called Love and Law, a great book by Ernest Holmes. And he writes, in metaphysics, as in everything else, we are dealing with a proposition, which is the substance of things which are not seen by physical eye. The human eye only sees things which are effect. The human hand touches only that which is effect. And we are very apt to say these things are controlled by law. That is true. Everything must be governed by law. Law controls everything absolutely. But we are not as apt to realize that the law itself is an effect. The law itself, the law of being, the law of the universe, the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, is an effect in itself. It's affected upon. See how we see things, what our perspective is, our perception is, becomes the degree in which we are affected by those things that happen around us, those things that seemingly happen to us. Because the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, the law of compensation, whatever you want to call that law, that universal law, works from our perspective, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs. That's where it takes, not its power, but that's where it takes its cues to bring forth into our lives our experiences. You see, what we are searching for is what we are searching with, that power and presence. Like here. You can't see it's a little low on the screen there, but the eye with which we see God is the same eye with which it sees us. And I'm not talking about the cornea type eyes, but that third eye, that inner eye. Some call it the sixth chakra or energy center of the body, but it sits in this area right between your eyes. And behind there, a little further back into your head, is the pineal gland. Now that's quite a fascinating thing going on in your brain through the pineal gland. In ancient Egypt, the pineal gland was known as the seat of the spirit or the soul. They used the third eye, as it's called, as a route to higher awareness and consciousness. The Buddhists related it to spiritual awakening. And the Hindus connected this third eye to a representation of intuition and clairvoyance. This gland that I'm talking about, they have found now in science that it secretes melatonin. That's the sleep hormone that is in response to the light-dark cycle that's going on every day, of course. It controls our body temperature, our hunger, our thirst, our fatigue or not having fatigue. Like I said, our sleep and our circadian rhythms, which are so important for us to keep balanced. It's also responsible for producing serotonin, the happy hormone, and it regulates through that our mood, our behavior, our digestion, our very digestion. And as most people know, maybe you don't realize it, what's going on with your digestion really works on what's going on with your life, your mood especially. And when you activate this pineal gland, because you can activate it purposefully, it gives clarity, it gives greater intuition. It opens yourself up. It accesses that greater intuition from the gut. It balances the left and right brain functions. There's a gentleman named Gottfried D. Perucker who wrote a book in 2011 called Man in Evolution. And he said, whenever we have a hunch, the pineal gland is vibrating gently. When we have an intuition or an inspiration or a sudden flash of intuitive understanding, it vibrates more strongly. It vibrates at the speed of the divine is what's going on, because we are connecting to that joy that is within us. And that joy, now I'm not talking about happiness, Happiness happens to be because of experiences that are going on. I'm talking about joy. Joy is an inner feeling, not merely an emotion. It's an inner feeling in that connection to the divine, whatever you want to call the divine. Your pineal gland, that third eye, that sixth chakra, that's where your vision is envisioned. Do you know what I mean? Where the vision that you have, the vision of vibrating at the speed of the divine, or whatever your personal vision for your life is envisioned. It is seen not only this way through the eyeballs, but seen through your consciousness, because it's got to be seen through your consciousness before it is seen through your eyeballs. A Franciscan sister in Washington, D.C., who's also a theologian and writes, she's written like a dozen or more books specializing in the art of the area of where science and religion connect. Her name is Elio DeLeo. She's a PhD as well. She wrote, "Wisdom is knowledge deepened by love. The wise person knows more deeply by the way of love than by the way of argument, because the eye of the heart can see the truth of reality. Hence, the wise person is one who knows and sees God shining through everything, even what seems ugly or despised." We have to remember God is in everything, sorrow or happiness. The joy, remember, the joy is in the connection, in the communion with this divine presence, with the power and presence of the universe. The joy is in the experience, which could be happiness or sorrow, and or the lesson that is learned. Maybe not at that very second that it is happening, but eventually a lesson is learned so that we can stay away from that sorrow or increase more of that happiness in that experience. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, of course, we may not like the experience. I've had many experiences that I don't like, but as I move through them, as I move past them, I learn, because I allow spirit to speak to me, because I also know spirit was in it. And if spirit was in it, then I know I can connect to whatever lesson I need to learn about myself. Being in that situation that brought on, especially in this case, a negative experience, but in both experiences, I want to increase these experiences that bring happiness in my life, or affluence, or all that wonderful positive stuff. But I also want to learn at the same time negative experiences that show up, what I can do to avoid those consciously, or even in a practical sense, know not to be in that situation, know not to be in that place again, so that negative experience doesn't show up. That's you taking part and touching upon and tuning in to the spirit that is working within you, that universal energy that is working within you. I see God in everything, positive or negative, because it is. Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "We must see that force begets force, hate begets hate, toughness begets toughness. And it is all a descending spiral, ultimately ending in destruction for all and everybody." Somebody must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate and the chain of evil in the universe, and you do that by love. You do that by connecting to the divine that is within you. You do that by vibrating, meaning everything that's going on in your mind and your body and the actions you take is vibrating at the speed of the divine, at the connection and communion with the universe. When you are in that, you don't step into negative things. You don't activate negative things in yourself when you're working through this vision. We control what we think, feel, say, and do. We have control over it. Our job in this great power of having control over what we think, feel, and do and say is to optimize that control. Because even in the midst of all these higher prices and the food shortages, and there's a war raging, probably more than one, there's political uncertainty going on in our country here in the United States. There's even some fascist type whisperings that have been going on the last few years that can be very saddening and maddening. But will you see life? Will you see, even through all that stuff, will you see life as a struggle and full of unloving people? And I know there are some unloving people out there. I get it. I see it. I've experienced it. But do you see disappointments and desperation and hate and negative inevitability? Do you believe that is inevitable? Or do you see lessons and possibilities that inspire you to take an active part in deterring all that negativity that we are seeing going on? Yeah, you have to take action, of course, but that action starts in envisioning exactly what it is you have decided you want to have in this life. A food shortage that affects you, yes or no? Higher prices that mess up your life, yes or no? You get to decide. You get to take the lesson. You get to decide what the possibilities are, no matter what shows up in your life. So what is your vision of beauty? Will it be full of false beliefs? Or are you going to engage in the truth? You're going to engage in the truth of the divine presence, the divine power is within you right here and now. And yeah, stuff's going to go on out there that's not going to be fun. But what are you going to do with that? You're going to piss and moan for days and days and days? Or are you going to do something about that in your consciousness? Are you going to envision and thus vision and thus activate in your life that how that negativity is not going to affect you? Are you going to do that? You have the power to do that. You can choose from a place of where love is present. Decide what you are for, not what you are against. Yeah, I totally get that. You are against higher prices. You are against food shortages. You are against this, the United States, at least seemingly, if not practically, becoming a little bit fascist or a lot of bit fascist. Yeah, of course. Of course you're against that, but what are you for? That's what's most important, because you need to focus on what you are for so that the universe can bring that into your life. It's not when you focus on what you are against, the universe just brings more of that in your life, because that's what it hears that you want. Now, I know sometimes it takes a little bit of squinting, you know what? Like you squint sometimes, you'll squint you think that kind of clarifies what you're trying to look at if you squint at it. And sometimes I know it seems like it takes a little bit of squinting to see through the muck that goes on around us, to see through it and see the truth. But don't squint to see clarity. Because when you squint, that lessens the illumination of light. That brings less light, actually, into your eyes. But in your consciousness, it brings less of light with capital L and spirit into your life, because you're closing up. It dries up your true perception, just like how squinting dries up the moisture in your eyeballs. It actually even blinds you to that which leads to enlightenment. You're not going to catch enlightenment by squinting at it. Open those eyes, my friends. Open those eyes, both inward and outward. Open them wide. See the obstructions. Go ahead, look at them. Look at them in the face. What did Steve said? Be a spiritual Hercules. Look at them right in there. See the obstructions that are happening in your perceptions. I have to do that. I have to go, well, wait. How did this show up in my life? What's my perception in life that made that show up or allowed that to show up? Is it from my history somehow, or maybe I'm buying into some supposed DNA inevitability. No, remove that. That's junk. You are not bound by your history. You are not bound by some DNA thing. As Helen Keller said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight and no vision. You have to have vision. What's your vision? What's your vision? Is your vision to raise hell and rise above anything that gets in your way? Is that your vision? What's your vision? You have to decide what your vision is. You can base it off of this. Have at it. But it's got to get personal. Jung said your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Carl Jung said that. Look inside. That's where you awaken from the inside. Not hanging out with what's going on out there. Hanging out with what's going on in here. Focus on what you want. I'm going to say it again. Focus on what you want. Did you hear it? Focus on what you want. Focus on, let's get rid of the want. Focus on what you have decided is going to be. Focus on what you have decided is going to be. You shouldn't have to squint to see it clearly. You just have to feel it. You have to visualize it. You have to imagine it. You have to envision it using your insight, not your eyesight. Your insight, not your eyesight. Again, Meister Eckhart, Catholic mystic from the Middle Ages, loved this quote: "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love." You can change that word God to whatever word pleases you, whatever word works for you. Universal presence, divine intelligence, divine love, the Big Bang. If you don't want anything that even sounds religious or spiritual, then don't. Change the term. It's all the same. It's an energy. It's that same singularity, as they call it, that created all. Instead of hoping or even asking you to promise, I'm inviting you to join me in declaring and dancing through life with eyes wide open and heart wide open, and inviting inspiration and imagination, and doing it at full bore with full body, mind, heart, gut, hands, fingers, everything. Full body, working at full bore with wings spread, and the whole of you ready to fly and take action. And how? You want to ask how? Let me give you another quote. A lot of quotes today. Carlos Castaneda. Now, I know there's some controversy in Carlos, especially later in his life, but he wrote some really great things, and here's one of them. In the universe, there is an immeasurable, indescribable force, which shamans call intent, and absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. What's the connecting link? Your mind and your heart. Not just your brain, but your mind. Your mind is everything. Your mind is consciousness. Your mind is that connection to the vision and the knowing that you are part of that one power in the universe. When you open your mind and heart, you let your imagination flow, and the inspiration will start chiming in. Then any needed information is just going to show up, and the course will get clear. You don't have to squint. You don't have to be myopic about anything. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. And what does the eternal one look like? Remember the story about the little girl that was sitting in the back of a classroom, and she was drawing, and the teacher walks back there and asks her, what are you drawing? And the little girl said she was drawing a picture of God. But nobody knows what God looks like, the teacher said. And the little girl looked up and replied, now they do. Yes, the Eternal One looks just like you. Draw a picture of you, and that is God. Draw a picture of you, and that is that singularity energy of the Big Bang. That's you. And you, and you, and you, and all of you. The light shines through all of you, as you might say, if you let it. It's going to shine anyway, but only to the degree that you allow it, only to the degree that you connect to it and allow yourself to vibrate at its speed. Start with a vision. Start with your vision, this vision, whichever a combination. Have a vision on your life. And remember that believing is seeing. Seeing from the inside. And seeing is being. Being the divine in you. Thank you so much. Namaste.